Okay, guys, so decided I'd do a little bit of airplane engine update and see what we got in there now. Obviously, there's a few new ones that showed up today, which was that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy. Also, that guy. So we'll start out with the back. So that guy there is a Magnum XL91 four-stroke. It's a copy of an OS 91 Surpass. They're not a bad motor. They're made in China, or engine, I should say. Fucking politically correct idiots. Anyways, yeah. So they're a copy of an OS. They had their issues, but they weren't too bad of a runner for what they are. They're a hell of a lot cheaper than an OS. But anyway, now we have a really nice OS here. We have an FL70. These are a great engine, four-stroke as well. You don't change the oil in those. They run on glow fuel and they get lubricated by the blow-by and fuel going through the crankcase and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why there's a tube at the bottom is for crankcase ventilation. This one has it in the back. That's why it's got so many fuel lines. It blows the crankcase ventilation out the exhaust. And next, we got a Irvine 20 diesel, which belongs to Pilot Mark. That watches occasionally. Actually doesn't live very far away from me. And he got that a couple of years ago, and the owner lied to him and said it was good, that it seemed to be cleaned and the inside of the engine's destroyed. So we were trying to see if we can source parts for that, and we have had no luck, sadly enough. And we have here a old Soviet-made engine. That's a Rayduga 40 or 7M, 7cc. It runs pretty well. It's kind of a cheesy engine. It's plain bearing. There's no bearings or bushings in any of it. Well, there is a central bronze bushing, but the rod has no bearings. It's got an iron piston and an iron sleeve, and they were kind of real cheap. I think they were made in a factory that made arms, like firearms or something like that. Was from what someone told me. Trying to get the kids into the aerospace program or something. And then here we have a Force 46 bearings. Well, this was a part when I got it today, but the bearings need replaced. Compression seems like it's all right. It should run. I'm not gonna. It needs a head gasket too. I'm gonna source out one of those. It has a 2-needle carburetor. The low speed needle is there. And the high speed is remote in the back, which is nice. Keep your fingers away from getting smacked like that one, or that one, or that one, or most of these. All right, second row. What do we got here? We're gonna talk about this little diesel here. This is a plain bearing engine as well. It's an old Soviet diesel. I don't know what year it is, but I'm just looking at the box here. So it says there. My Russian's not very good, so I can't really remember how to read that. But anyways, so it's 2.5cc diesel, iron piston too, and you guys have seen it run. It actually runs quite well. The compression's a little not too great, so you're just gonna put a little dab of motor oil in the exhaust port there when you start it, so it has a little bit more pow, a little bit more compression. And right here we have a Magnum GP. I think it's a 40. It is. These are a really nice engine. Actually, these things ran really good. Looks like the holes have been drilled out a little bit on it. That's all right. These are a really nicely made engine. Nice Taiwanese-based company. Well, same as that. Well, Taiwan, China, whatever. Anyways, copy of an OS basically. And yeah, no, those were decent. A lot of people keep asking me, hey, when are you going to get back into flying RC airplanes? It's just too much of a hassle here, man. It's thousands of dollars with the liability, and got to travel an hour, 3 hours each way, and join a club, and if they don't like you, then yeah, it's kind of over. Can't fly them in the city anymore either. It's kind of illegal. And we got the really cool little focus, you fuckstick. Come on. OS Max 19. What crazy? It looks like a suppressor for a gun. Made in Japan. This is an iron. Uh-oh. I know where it went. It's behind me. It's good. This, I think these were made in the 60s, maybe in the 1950s. Iron sleeve, or steel sleeve iron piston. Look at how long the tip is on that glow plug compared to, say, That one. That's ridiculous. It'd probably break your glow igniter if you tried to use that. That's one you just hook up a little jumper cable. I'm going to put a normal plug in there like an OS-A3 or something. But it turns over. It has good compression, so that's going to be a good candidate to get that running. I'll probably run that on some 0%, which is just an 80-20 caster and methanol fuel, or some Klotz Super Technoplate, but mostly caster. And we have the little Enya 09. So that's 1.5 cc. It's missing the exhaust nipple, but that's okay. This is a control line engine, so basically that long thing right here controls fuel input. There's no butterfly, there's no carburetor on it. So basically once you get it to start it up, let it warm up and adjust that needle until it just screams its head off. This is a really interesting designed engine. As you can see, the back of the crankcase, which usually is how you take these engines apart, like that one, or even like that one. This is when you take it apart from the front. It's pretty different. I think there was even some OS engines that were like that too, some of the early ones. Really neat. That one has really good compression too. I think that one will run just fine. And then we have, you guys have seen this engine before. That came in that box of mystery engines. I gotta clean it up. I just want to be really careful with this. This is an OS Max 10 FP, I think. FP10. And you guys saw it run too. This engine actually does run pretty good. The compression's, it's fine. It's not super high, but it's good. It's a plain bearing engine too, as is that one and that one. So plain bearing, what I mean by that is there's a central bushing that goes through the center of the block here, right? There's no actual ball bearings in these. So you have to run a higher castor oil content. Because you run these on normal RC fuel, you burn them up real quick. They'll have a bunch of slop in the crank and they won't run right after. The crank will start walking around in the block. And we have another one. This one sustained a little damage to the cylinder head. Let's get an OS plug in there. That's another Max, OS Max FP10. It has alright compression as well. It'll probably come around a little bit once it's been run with some good castery fuel with some Klotz. And we have the McCoy, is it a McCoy? Or no, sorry, Torpedo, K&B Torpedo 19. This one's seen a couple of hot suppers, man, I'm telling you. And sadly, it's just too wore out to run. The crankcase all wore out in it, and the crank wobbles in it. And yeah, I tried to get it running, and it'll pop and run for a couple seconds and lose compression and stall. So, and my God, is it loud with that open stack? I'll tell you that. Excuse me. Moving on to the next, we have a KMA. This is also a Soviet diesel. These are Schnarl ported engines. These actually perform quite nicely. These were made up into the 90s, I believe. And they're a Moscow import, I think. Rear induction. So they have a disc valve in the back, like an old Kawasaki KE125 would have. That's a nice performer. And then we have our Super Cox 049. It's actually an RC car, Cox RC car cylinder head and an RC car throttle on there. Or, well, RC throttle, whatever. And you guys have seen this run on 0% and all sorts of stuff, and it runs alright. It's not bad. I don't mind it. It's actually quite worn out with the amount of freaking runtime. I've had that thing run for hours at a time, so. Then we get another Cox 049. That's another Sure Start. These are both Sure Start engines. And then we have, I can't remember, this is one I got today from Adam. Along with that one. And that one, that one, that one, that one. This guy here, I think these were called a Silver Bee, or a Baby Bee. I can't remember exactly what the call name was for it. But it's got the extruded case, not the, whatever they called it. Yeah, it's got the big open exhaust port on these. A lot of these actually used to be like that, and they changed them to this style with a bridged exhaust port, which makes them a little bit more difficult to prime, because you got to prime some fuel in there to make them start easier, right? Dab some fuel here, dab some. Basically, with these things, you want to almost dip the whole engine in a bucket of fuel before you go to start it. But these often would shoot fire out of those exhaust ports there, as you can see all the way through it. And they'd light your little foam plane on fire, so you'd have to be careful of that. There's another Sure Start 049. You can see what I'm talking about by the bridged exhaust port versus that one that's open. And we have some Cox 020s or 020s. These are sadly, these were my dad's. He's long since passed away, but they're sadly way too wore out to run. They kind of run for a few seconds and that's it. This one doesn't run at all anymore, so it's kind of a bummer, but yeah, those are kind of a family heirloom. He played with those when he was a kid. And let's see what else we got here. We got a silver MK17 diesel. It's another Soviet-made diesel. Compression adjustment here. You got your fuel mixture there. Of course, it's an induction in the back. Here's another one. These both run really nice. There's a Mars or a MAP 2.5. They're rear induction as well. These things are a real screamer, man. These things really haul. These are actually a 6-port engine, so 6 transfer ports. If you're wondering what all the goop is, it's Cosmoline. When these things were made new, they pumped them full of Cosmoline for storage, and it's a sticky mess to clean them all up. So usually with these, I just throw them in a bucket of paint thinner for a few days, and that seems to clean them up. Then pull them apart, clean it, replace the gasket, throw some fresh bearings in it, and they seem to run quite well. Like I said, these things with a correct prop on them really freaking fly. And you can change the Venturis in them too. The only problem is they had a lot of problems with leaking around this area here and caused them to run kind of funny, so people gave up on them. I think those were sold in the States as a Puma brand engine, like the Cat. And here we got, this is a MK12V or B. Well, the V is actually a B in Russia, but this one sadly is too wore out to run. It's actually new from the 70s. But these were really shitty made engine. These were actually an 8-port sleeve in these. 8 transfer slots in these. And man, if you got one that was good, that was machined properly, they have a lot of firepower. These things really haul ass. With the right prop on them, they actually go pretty good. The older ones are better. This is a 3-piece block. Same model, same engine, except just a different color. It's red and black, obviously you can tell. I had to have the face machined here and in the back because it was so warped that nothing was sealed and it wouldn't run right, and the bearings would fall out of it. But you guys have seen this one run probably a few years ago, and people always ask, oh, you know, bearings this and bearings that and all that nonsense. But sealed bearings and all this other racket, well, I'll show you this. It's kind of scary. This might freak some of you guys out. A lot of these engines, that's your front bearing. It's not even sealed at all. No shield, just wide open, and it runs absolutely just fine. So that freaks people out all the time when you post something like that. What do you mean it doesn't have any sealed bearings? Bearings seal the engine. No, they don't. How they seal is in the front of the engine. Let's find a 2-stroke here, like this guy. These are 2-strokes. They mostly are. Even these ones are. There's 2-stroke diesels. Is when the fuel air mixture passes here, there's a groove in the end of the crank or in the snout of the crankcase, and that holds the fuel there, and the fuel basically takes up the space between the crank and the crankshaft and acts like a seal in there, like a liquid gasket essentially. So that's how they work. Same with these little engines here. There's not even any bushings in those. It's straight steel and aluminum. Even the connecting rod is steel to steel with the crankshaft. Pretty bizarre how that can actually last at 27,000 RPM. But, yeah, so you guys have seen this one run before. I think I was telling you about that. And you guys have seen a lot of these run. You guys have seen both those run before. But I will be attempting to run this guy here, this guy, that guy. You guys have already seen that one. I'll see if I can get this old guy to start here. This thing's had a couple of hot suppers real badly. I'll see about sourcing a head gasket for that, and I'll get these little 049s and stuff going as well, so you guys can hear those things scream their heads off for 20 minutes if you want. But anyways, guys, that's the airplane engine collection for now, just in case you guys are wondering. Yes, I'm in my kitchen again, I know. It's the only place that has good lighting, because I got that kind of lighting up there. Look at my plant. Freaking growing all the way across my kitchen here. Pretty crazy. Anyways, guys, as always, thanks for watching. And keep on burning nitro out there. Or diesel. Or both. Burn something. Just don't burn yourself. Later.